They say when a baby is born, so is a mother. But while you are there to help your baby grow into the person he or she is meant to be, who is there to help you? Many women feel lost and alone when they become mothers, wondering, who am I now? Sometimes it feels like the transformation from woman to mother is as radical as a caterpillar's transformation into a butterfly. Did you know that inside the chrysalis, the caterpillar literally turns into goop before it rearranges itself into a butterfly? This podcast is about the goop, what soul transformation looks like as you transition from being a woman to a mom. Your baby's growth matters, but yours does too. You're not alone. I'm your host, Brittany Ming. Welcome to the Motherhood Metamorphosis.
Welcome everyone to this episode of the Motherhood Metamorphosis. I'm your host, Brittany Ming, and today we're talking to Shay Garcia Roy. Shay lives in Albuquerque, New Mexico, close to family with her partner Tyler and their 2-year-old daughter Ruby Ann and their little dog Zero. After years of struggling with infertility, Shay and Tyler embarked on an IVF and surrogacy journey that brought profound lessons, joy, and gratitude. This experience has deepened their trust in humanity, science, love, and family. Passionate about sharing her story, Shay hopes to inspire others to feel confident exploring options for growing their families. So welcome, Shay. I'm so happy to have you on today.
Thank you so much for having me on, Brittany.
So this is part 2 in this surrogacy story because we just interviewed Mariah Duck, and she was your surrogacy carrier for your daughter Ruby Ann. So I'm so excited to share your story about how your daughter came to be in your life. So I was wondering if you could just dive right in and tell us what your motherhood journey looked like leading up to the birth of Ruby Ann.
Yes, of course. I just want to start by saying I'm so thrilled that Mariah was able to share her and what I've known to only be an incredible perspective around what it's like to be a surrogate and to carry and to work with a family who are intending to become parents but who are struggling with infertility. So that's really exciting. My story, or I guess my family's story, myself, my partner Tyler, and our daughter Ruby started with unfortunately my infertility struggles. The first time I noticed I had infertility struggles was when my partner and I got pregnant when I was around 28. I don't know quite remember what year that was, but I remember I was 28 because I remember thinking, I'm young, I have lots of time, and I should not really be struggling with this. But unfortunately, there was quite a bit of a struggle because there were a lot of incidents and issues that kept coming up with our inability to conceive a viable pregnancy. In addition to that, I suffered significantly during the times that I was pregnant, mostly having to do with concerns for how my I guess you could call it my uterus was reacting to the pregnancy. I had some fibroids, some cysts, some internal bleeding, and this was just all very unexplored about what my infertility looked like. It was kind of like once I was pregnant, then doctors would notice things and say, okay, well, let's just treat what we've got right in front of you. And I got to a point where I thought, the pregnancy, not my super favorite thing, but boy, we would love to have a child, and so, but still thinking that I had the chance to carry. There was never really a thought in my mind that I wouldn't somehow work through not being able to carry a pregnancy. Just that it seemed like it was going to be a rough road. I think that's where I was at in my mind.
So your pregnancy at 28, did it end in miscarriage?
I actually had a procedure as an abortion, a surgical or procedural abortion. So yeah. I had a surgical or procedural abortion. What happened was my pregnancy, our little embryo that it was forming into a fetus at that point, had fetal anomalies, 2 fetal anomalies. The brain was growing without a skull. The baby's brain was growing without a skull, and the stomach was growing on the outside of the stomach lining.
So I'm so sorry.
Thank you. It's both rare and common
Mm.
And those out there who are experiencing this are not alone either.
Mm-hmm.
It happens. And my big question was, what did I do wrong? Was it
Yeah.
that week before I found out I was pregnant and I had a glass of wine?
Mm-hmm.
Was it, could it have been because I went walking around too much, or I did an extensive yoga practice? I mean, you just start wondering, why did this happen?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the doctors at the time when I was 28, there's not a lot of opportunities for women to check on their fertility or infertility at any age until there's a mishap,
Yeah, for sure. It's
which is
like
the
only,
problem.
yeah, only until you like are trying to get pregnant, or only after you have a miscarriage, only after you have to terminate a pregnancy due to fetal abnormalities, do you realize, hey, something else might be going on. And then it can take years to get answers.
Yeah, exactly. And something that I had wished, as my infertility progressed and our options for becoming a family became less and less, I wish that when I was much younger, my doctor could have encouraged me to get checked out for fertility or infertility, to check on my fertility. And that wasn't really available. That wasn't kind of the way that the medical industry was practicing, the gynecological industry is practicing. I hope that can change. But in terms of my story, I got, I had this pregnancy when I was 28, my first experience being pregnant. And when we were at the specialist office, of course, they gave us the news, which was a huge blow, such a gut punch. So I went and I made my appointment, and it was very clear that my doctor was saying, you need to do this. I will put in a referral for you to Dr. Boyd. I mean, this was like a thing that was highly recommended, but unfortunately, my specialist, or none of my mainstream providers, as you may call them, provide the service. So I had to go in and go to these other specialists, who do ultimately, I'm going to use the word abortion because it's the same exact thing. So
Yeah.
I had an abortion for a wanted pregnancy that was inviable, and there were no questions about the viability that this baby would even survive with, even the quality of life wasn't even in question. It was
Yeah.
like this fetus will not survive a birth,
Mm-hmm.
even, so much less survive the rest of the pregnancy. So at that point, it was horrible news, and I
Yeah.
was very afraid of going through that again.
Mm-hmm.
So my partner Tyler and I put the brakes on trying to get pregnant again. I had a lot of people in my support community kind of telling me, this happens, lots of people have miscarriages and then they go on to have perfectly healthy pregnancies and healthy babies and wonderful families. And I'm thinking, okay, when I feel ready, we're going to try this again. So there was on and off periods once I reached 30 that Tyler and I continued to try
Mm-hmm.
to get pregnant. Right before the pandemic, I did get pregnant, but had a very early miscarriage at 6 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't, I didn't even really experience much of that pregnancy. That was just very eventful, but uneventful compared to the
Yeah.
first experience, where I was about 12 weeks when they discovered the abnormalities.
Mm-hmm.
Then the pandemic hit and we thought, okay, we're going to put this on hold. When things started to stabilize a lot more with the pandemic, I realized that I'd reached my mid 30s, and I thought, okay, I need to do this now. I did find out that when you are 35, and you're pregnant, you're considered a geriatric pregnancy. That is not something widely talked about, but women who have babies at 40 is widely talked about. So there's there's like a false sense of safety that you have more time than maybe you might not have. But I was feeling that stereotypical biological clock. I was thinking, okay, things are stabilizing with the pandemic. Tyler, let's really do this, let's just do it. And it's going to work out this time. It took us about a year of trying. And then I got pregnant. Mm-hmm. And it was very exciting for about a week. And then I had just started to have really horrific pregnancy symptoms.
Mm.
I can't remember the term. I probably should have looked this up knowing that I was going to do this interview. It's where you have that internal bleeding, and it's not always a problem. It's like a hemorrhage, an
Yeah, like
internal
a
hemorrhage.
hematoma. Is it hematoma?
Yes,
Yes.
it's something to that effect, where not a great sign if you have one in the first trimester, but it doesn't necessarily indicate anything terrible. Also, the baby's heart was really slow, but the doctor said it's early and it takes time for their heart rates to get where we want them to be. And sometimes they can have slow heart rates right out of the gate, and then they get up there just fine. And so I'm sorry, I'm just gonna like pause and swallow a little bit because it's harder to talk about than you think.
It is. You take all the time you need. This is hard. It's hard to recount like the most painful parts of your womanhood story. And loss is hard. I've been there too. So I hear you.
Yeah. So heart rate wasn't looking great. Already getting some concerning symptoms. I had some horrible mental health symptoms, just some horrible morning sickness. I couldn't function in my day-to-day life. And so in tandem to this, I go to my 8-week appointment, and the heart rate is still not where it should be, the baby's heart rate. At which point there's concern for whether or not pregnancy is going to miscarry itself, or what's going to happen. So at around 9 weeks, I came back about a week later to the doctor, and the doctor just said, this isn't, the heart rate it's faint. It's not, I think that they liked it. I can't remember the exact beats per minute, but it was something like it should have been up to about, tell me if this sounds right to you, Brittany, about 160 or 180 or something.
Yeah, that's pretty typical.
Okay, yes. And the baby in our little one wasn't even at 100 beats per minute yet, still under there. So something was up, something was not happening. And so Tyler and I decided to have an abortion because there wasn't looking good. We didn't know what else to do. It's like some folks might feel like as long as there's a heartbeat, just keep going for it. But the writing was on the wall that it was not a success. It was not going to be a successful pregnancy. It was just not going to be that way. And that's when I told Tyler, well, I actually was in bed after that for a long time with a lot of depression.
Yeah.
And guilt, and trying to figure out what I was doing wrong, or what was happening, or did I let go of that pregnancy too soon? But just feeling just absolutely sick and miserable throughout the entire thing, that finally my mom told me, Shay, you need to go to a fertility doctor. I haven't really brought up my mom enough in this story because she's been like a rock. She was actually with me at most of these doctor's appointments. My partner Tyler is with me for them as well, but my mom is right there by my side through everything as well. So she said, you need to go see a fertility doctor. And I was scared because I was scared, and I was still grieving. I was just thinking, why don't I already have a couple of healthy children? Why is this happening to me? And I'm scared about what this means. You know, if I keep trying, how much heartbreak can I go through? And so we went to see a doctor named Dr. Caperton here in New Mexico. And he's very talented at what he does as a fertility specialist, an infertility specialist. Him and his wife have a practice. And we went in to see them. And that's when I received my first infertility diagnosis, which is diminished ovarian reserve, which, to give you an idea of what that looks like and how it's diagnosed, they do a vaginal ultrasound, and they count the follicles, which are all of your potential for embryos, or if that could be fertilized to become embryos. And so the doctor went in and counted my follicles, and he said, okay, a healthy woman of reproductive age could have anywhere between 15 to 25 follicles on both sides. And he said, you have maybe 5. You might only be 4, but I'm going to count this. One of these little ones I saw over there is 5. And I think that the actual standard diagnosis is if you have less than 10 follicles that you get diagnosed, 10 or less, you get diagnosed with a diminished ovarian reserve, which is what I was ultimately diagnosed with. It explained a lot of the issues. It explained the difficulty getting pregnant. It explained the multiple inviable pregnancies when I would get pregnant. I kind of do think that I had reached a point in my reproductive organs that perhaps, I'm going to use this term, Mother Nature working against us. Like, just to kind of accepting that. I think that Tyler and I had we were able to look at it and say, okay, this is what we're dealing with. And just on a comical note, Tyler's sperm was evaluated to see if that could be contributing to the problem.
Is this also your fault?
Is this also your fault? Right. And the report came back, just glowing report. I mean, he's got, according to the science, to the metrics, he's got fantastic sperm, the mobility, the potencies, all there. And I'm like, okay, great. We don't need any more.
Did it piss you off that he had amazing sperm and you had like maybe 5 follicles?
Of course it did. But then I've got this side of me that's this fixer, and I'm like, okay, one less problem we don't have to worry about, right?
Right. Your sperm are amazing. We just have to help me.
Yeah. How do we get what we want, which is to have a family? And it made me feel defective, made me feel like I think there are certain attitudes throughout history, and certainly there still exists today, that a woman's worth is surrounded around her ability to reproduce and to bear children and provide a man with children. So that hurt, because I did feel like, wow, the fact that Tyler took all the news with so much grace, and the fact that he still loved me, that thought came into my head, like, oh, he still loves me. Even though I'm deficit, gosh, I'm so lucky, and he is so wonderful. That plus minus kind of thinking it's definitely taken a toll on me. But what was nice about the experience, what was nice about the bonding experience for Tyler and I, is that we both decided we're going to do this, and it's going to be hard, but we're in this together, and we're going to do it, and we're not going to let anything kind of stop us or distract us. Which I think taking a moment to sit with your thoughts and stuff is really important. But I'm very type A, and I just thought, let's do this. I mean, let's make some really good effing lemonade. Sorry, I'm not sure if I can say the effing word.
Yeah, you can. Yep, you can.
Make some really good effing lemonade out of these almost old shriveled lemons. So we've got, we're moving on. We're steamrolling ahead, and the doctor, finally asks us a question. He says, I think we should do IVF. Do you guys want to proceed? And I'm like, yes, of course. Everyone's body reacts differently to IVF. And I'm just going to, I want to get to the Mariah part of the story, because that's like, that part is just the best part. But the IVF part, pumping your body full of synthetic hormones, it can be very rough. It did surprise me how harsh the IVF process was on my body. Specifically, caused weight gain, and that just threw me on a cascade of health symptoms, concerns that were very measurable. For example, I had high blood pressure, pre-diabetic, gained about 30 to 40 pounds because I did 2 rounds of IVF within a 12-month period. And Dr. Caperton, which I appreciate this, was very aggressive with the treatment, because he knew we were dealing with a very real possibility that we would produce nothing. My body would produce nothing because of my diminished ovarian reserve. The doctor was able to extract about 5 embryos that he was able to fertilize with Tyler's sperm. And from that point, they waited for them to grow about 5 days, which they would turn into what's called a blastocyst.
Mm-hmm.
And any of those little embryos that turned into blastocysts could be implanted into a uterus to grow into a pregnancy. And so we had 5 fertilized and 2 grew to blastocyst. And Dr. Caperton genetically screened the 2 embryos. Turns out one of them was inviable, missing a chromosome. And the other one, which is Ruby today, was very healthy. As a matter of fact, only 12% of blastocysts start to spontaneously hatch, where they try to start developing into a stage that requires a uterus. She started doing that in a petri dish. And so
she was ready to go.
We joke about that because her personality now is like, oh man, she is totally a hatching blastocyst. That's not surprising to me now.
I'm a hatching blastocyst.
I mean, she is, she knows what she wants and she's going for it, and she's very determined and she's very insistent. And so this whole process of, harvesting follicles and fertilizing them and waiting for them, and it's about as painful as it sounds in terms of the wait and the concern and is this going to work? And every time the phone rings, is it good news, bad news, that sort of thing. So that went on for a long time. So we had retrieved 1 viable embryo that was fertilized into a blastocyst, ready to go. But unfortunately, the statistics were stacked against us because on average, it can take up to 3 transfers before you get a viable pregnancy that results in a successful birth. And thinking we just had 1 was like such a weight on our shoulders. It was such a weight on my shoulders. I was just a nervous wreck, very concerned about and that's when I decided to do a second round of IVF. In the meantime, simultaneously, we asked Dr. Caperton, okay, what are we going to do with this golden egg? And he says, you have 2 options. We can transfer the embryo to you, Shay, or we can transfer the embryo into a surrogate. And I said, well, is there like a very finite reason why we wouldn't want to transfer it to me? This is me still holding out hope that I can carry the pregnancy. And he says, want to ask you a question. And I said, okay. And he said, do you want to try to carry this embryo or do you want to have a baby? And I think what was most important about the question, it hurt, but it got me thinking about how important it was to give this every chance we could. Mm-hmm. And Dr. Caperton was really speaking from a place of statistics. I mean, does he have a crystal ball? Does he know it's going to work out? No, because who knows? I mean, anything is possible in something like this. And sure, there was a chance I could have transferred to me and I would have had a successful pregnancy and a successful birth. But I truly believe that having a healthier uterus, healthier circumstances than maybe my body was able to provide to grow and birth Ruby, I stand by that today, as I think it was one motherly decision that I was able to make and say, okay, this isn't about me getting my baby bump pictures, though those are very important and I think they need to be respected and honored and celebrated. But at that point I was thinking, I there's things that I wanted out of a pregnancy. I'm just not going to get them. And I need to make peace with that. And of course there was a grieving period for that. And it happened throughout our entire pregnancy. But there was also this feeling of I just need to focus on the positive because we're so fortunate. And that was hard to balance because I wanted to make space for my feelings, but I also wanted to not feel like I was taking anything for granted, all the good things for granted.
Yeah.
And then by the end of it all, I had several friends who have carried pregnancies and given birth. And although they said, yeah, it's a beautiful, wonderful thing, you get a lot out of it, they said, Shay, you can't have a baby without being pregnant or giving birth. Your biological baby. Like they're like, that's please try to find the silver lining in that. I'm like, okay, I'll stop bitching. That was some real talk that I had that I do appreciate that. So anyhow, we're looking for a surrogate at this point. We're planning to have a baby via gestational carrier. And I like to define to people that Ruby is mine and Tyler's biological daughter because we did a lot to create our own embryo. Mm-hmm. So I just feel a lot of pride that we were able to at least get that far.
Yeah, for sure.
And we had make some contribution to this. And so we thought, okay, well, we need to find a surrogate. And I had looked into agencies, and I wasn't impressed with the agencies because there seemed to be a huge disconnect around what we were looking for, and the amount of money that the agencies wanted did not seem on par with what seemed like we were going to get from them. I think agencies have helped a lot of people, but I just, for some reason, just didn't feel like it was going to help us with what, because we were looking for a very personal experience, and we wanted a surrogate that we could have communication with and be close to. The biggest piece was finding a surrogate and getting matched with a surrogate, but he did give us very valuable advice. I think that this is the reason we were connected with Mariah, was because of the advice Dr. Caperton gave us. He said, go onto social media platforms, and if you are comfortable sharing your situation, put out a call to action to everyone you know that you are looking for a surrogate. And I always thought from the beginning that I wanted to be very open about this, because when we started even contemplating surrogacy, the only people that I could recall off the top of my head without looking it up was that Kim Kardashian had a surrogate. So it's like, how is something that she did something that I could have access to that's
right.
accessible?
It seems so like celebrity culture. You're like, I'm not even in that circle. Yeah.
Right. Like pie in the sky, you know? Mm-hmm. And Dr. Caperton kind of pointed it out and said, if you're paying a fair market price for a surrogate, there are people who finance vehicles like trailers or really large trucks that cost the same.
Yeah.
And when he said that to me, I thought, oh, we could do this with financing. So there's the whole financial piece. And I don't get too much into that because I feel that finances, and look, sometimes this is a privilege to be able to say this, but for me, I always feel like I'll never miss the money. I would miss the chance to do this because it's in my heart, you know? And so, but the financial piece is so stressful. And I could see the financial piece causing some couples to completely abandon the journey. And I think that's fair because financially it is a big lift. So I posted on social media looking for a surrogate, posted our story. Luckily, I have a lot of friends and family in Albuquerque. Ideally, we were looking for someone local so we could attend doctor's appointments, just everything you would imagine, you know, how if you had to be removed from a pregnancy yourself, still wanting to be involved. So ultimately, one of my aunts had signal boosted my post, and she had got it in front of a bunch of her friends. One of her friends, who's a hairdresser, Mariah, could not have been farther away in England all this time. She comes back. I think she had been back maybe a matter of months here in Albuquerque. And she was getting her hair cut by my aunt's friend. And she was telling my aunt's friend, the hairdresser, telling her, I really wanted to pursue being a surrogate now that I'm back in the States. And this amazing hairdresser, she's listening. And then she gets on her social later, sees this post, and it's just things happen, magical things happened in her brain. And she said, I'm going to connect these two, which I give her so much credit to this day. Because if she, just by one, paying attention, and two, taking that moment to just message and connect us.
She's like your fairy godmother matchmaker.
Yes, and it feels like such a small thing, right? It's so easy to scroll past posts, and it's so easy to hear somebody say something and just go, oh, okay, cool, that's nice. But to really connect people so meaningfully, I give her so much credit. And so she connected us via Facebook, and Mariah and I started out with a phone conversation. But what really drew me to Mariah was her Facebook picture. And I don't mean this to sound cheesy, because I know a lot of people love sunflowers, but my late grandmother, who was my guardian angel my whole life, I believe she's still my guardian angel, though she's passed away. She's very strong, very powerful, and very spiritual. Sunflowers were like a totem for her. I mean, sunflowers everywhere, always all about sunflowers. And she loved them so much that that every time I see a sunflower, I just feel her presence. Mariah's Facebook picture was her standing in a field of sunflowers.
And sunflowers are really important to her too.
And then I come to find that out. And so then Mariah and I get on the phone, and we start clicking. And knowing Mariah now, she had, she was looking at agencies, and she told me she was thinking at the time, oh, independent journey sounds so scary, but something is really drawing me to this person. And I'm sure you interviewed her, so you heard her side, and I wouldn't be surprised if she said something similar to this. So then we go and we meet in person, and the language she used was just it was just like drawing me in, because things that my late grandmother, I call her my nana, things that my nana used to say were manifesting, spiritual, just all those sorts of words around how the universe works in mysterious ways. And Mariah was using a lot of these same kind of terminologies, and it was just so genuine. And I thought, there is just something really special and important about this person to me. I feel that this would be, gosh, I would be so proud to have her as our surrogate. I would be so comfortable having her as our surrogate. And I'd be so happy for my unborn child to have someone like Mariah carry them and bring them into the world. So there was a lot of just pride that came out, because she talked about how important pregnancy and birth is to her, and how she wanted to have a beautiful birth, how it wasn't just about financial, or even, and those are good reasons too. I mean, financial, those are good reasons, but the Mariah's reasons just really matched with things that I was found to be quite beautiful about the process, which is bringing someone into the world, and so I guess, the last big step was to get our husbands together to see if they got along. And and Mariah's husband, Bobby, who is such a gem, Tyler and I met up with them, and Bobby is just this fantastic combination of strength and tenderness. I just was like, oh my gosh, like, he is such a strong, sturdy person, but then at the same time, you could just feel his empathy and his acceptance for doing this alongside Mariah, and for supporting Mariah and supporting us. And he's so supportive. I mean, I can't even say enough. But and Tyler, of course, loved him. They had a lot in common. So having said that, it was just the perfect match. And Mariah decided she wanted to move forward. We did. We had to go through. So we hired an attorney, and we hired an attorney for Tyler and I. We hired an attorney for Mariah. And so our attorneys put together a contract, which was very long, and it spelled out a lot of things about how everything would go down, but it was also in legal language. So there's half of it is the interpretation can be a little squirrely. I'm going to get to that in a minute. But Mariah and I are like, we're on a timeline for Mariah's cycle, and we need this contract to be completed before we can start signed and completed before we can start any medical treatments for the surrogacy. And Mariah and I decided that we were going to expedite things, because we were told it could take 3 months for these legal contracts to go through. And Mariah and I said, oh, no. We're both want to Zoom on this. So her and I just pushed our attorneys, and her and I were talking offline to each other saying, are you good with this? I'm good with this. You good with this? We're good with these terms. went ahead and we signed and we moved forward, and neither one of us were pushing each other. I mean, it wasn't like Mariah was saying, all right, come on, Shay, let's do this quicker. Or, or I was saying, all right, Mariah, let's do this. We were both like equally like, let's just move this along. We're ready. We don't need to wait for this clerical stuff. And so we signed the paperwork and we agreed on Mariah's surrogacy contract, the finances, the terms, everything. We did get an escrow company where we put all the money into the escrow company where it was safe and protected for Mariah. So no matter what happens, Mariah was going to receive her payment, and having that protection was very important to Tyler and I, keeping the integrity of what we were doing. I never for 1 minute wanted Mariah to feel like anything would be at her expense or that we were co-opting her body in a way that was inhumane or without dignity or without integrity. And so that was always something that we wanted to make clear, that this is just a beautiful altruistic thing she was doing for us. And it's so hard to talk about, because when you talk about things like human life and you talk about things like sacrifice and pain and suffering and someone else's body in service of your dream. And so Tyler and I would stay up at night sometimes worrying about wanting to make sure that Mariah felt appreciated and Mariah felt like she was getting what she needed out of the experience, and that she felt that she could talk to us about anything and that we would understand, and that yes, we're very our focus is on this little embryo that we're going to try and make a pregnancy out of, but that she as a human and a person was now part of our worries and our concern. So we move along, and this contract gets spelled out and pumped out. Great. We get to move forward with the treatment, which looks like Mariah taking some synthetic hormones that amp up her body to prepare to receive a pregnancy. The transfer happens, and she would be about 6 days into conception, theoretically, once the transfer happens, because our little blastocyst was about 5 to 6 days old. And about 3 days after the transfer happened, Mariah, just as eager as I was, started giving herself pregnancy tests at home. And I'm like, oh God, I love you. And sure enough, that little pink line started showing up. And I'm like, and her and I, I'm traveling at the time to see my husband's family, and she's sending me pictures of the pregnancy test, and it's very faint, and we're like, is that a light? Is it could it just be the light? And so her and
You're
I
like, we are the private message board on those fertility sites. Is this a positive? Do you think this is positive?
Yes. So
Yes.
what this is all about. Is this positive? And so her and I are just like going back and forth, and which is really unique, because there are a lot of surrogacy journeys that the intended parents are notified by a doctor when there's a pregnancy, or that the attorneys talk to each other. The intended parents and the surrogate, there are a lot of times where they don't have each other's phone number and they're texting each other, and the attorneys and the doctors are kind of the outsiders. That is one way to do it. And that's the way we did it. And I wouldn't have wanted it any other way. And I truly felt that Mariah felt the same way. So that was really special. So we both, I knew she was pregnant. Probably me and Bobby knew Mariah was pregnant before anyone else. And it was so exciting when we realized we had achieved pregnancy. And we'd go into our specialist, she'd get the ultrasound, heartbeat at 6 weeks, healthy heartbeat. So our doctor at one point said, this is the ideal surrogate. It was great to hear that. And I think that it comforted us. I think it comforted Mariah as well, because she wanted this experience very much so. So everyone's a happy camper. Pregnancy's moving along beautifully. We still don't know the sex of the baby, because we could have known from the very first day that the doctor did genetic testing, but we said, no, since we just have one, we don't want to worry about knowing the sex, because that's all there is. But we held off on the sex. We wanted to hold off on the sex until we had reached 12 months in the pregnancy, at which point
12 weeks.
Oh, I'm sorry, 12 weeks. Forgive me.
Yeah.
You're like 12 months.
12
Shay.
months. That's a long pregnancy. It's longer when you're a gestational carrier.
Oh, weeks, months, so many numbers. Yeah, so 12 weeks in the pregnancy was when we wanted to do a gender reveal, which we did. And Mariah and her family were a part of that. And a lot of us thought it was going to be a boy. And I really wasn't sure. And then we did a reveal. We did those poppers. Pink confetti came flying out of the poppers. And I was delighted, of course, because I would have been delighted either way, but I was just delighted to think of having a daughter. It just made this experience feel even, closer to home. And Mariah was delighted as well. And everyone's, happy. So the pregnancy keeps moving. Then at about 16, 20 weeks, we start talking about birth, what birth's going to look like. Now, the idea of a birth center had come up, and I thought it sounded fantastic, but unfortunately I wasn't quite sure what exactly a birth center was, right? So we're going to do a tour. We do a tour of this birth center here in Albuquerque. Beautiful, wonderful place. I couldn't imagine a better place to give birth at. But one thing that made me nervous was that it was this birth center was 20-minute drive to a hospital.
Any medical interventions?
Any medical interventions? I mean, they did have interventions at this birth center, but they weren't. They were a little limited, and
right.
And that
barring
was
any emergency.
Precisely, because one thing that I always believed was that a pregnancy is not a medical emergency until it is one.
Yeah.
So we don't want a lot of interference. We want the philosophy that Mariah had that I share was that the woman can birth naturally and healthily. And then in the event of an emergency, of course, medical interventions we feel are appropriate and invited. And I know that Mariah felt the same way. Mariah had this beautiful balance of wanting to have a natural birth, but still was open to medical attention if needed. The part where we, I guess, got stuck was the potentially 20-minute drive to the hospital. I'm thinking 20 minutes. 20 minutes. 20 minutes. 20 minutes. I mean, like echo. And like I had mentioned, it's a high stakes for us with this is our one shot, so to speak, miracle situation. And also really just being concerned about all the gambit of things that could happen, preserving Mariah's life, preserving the baby's life, and what that level of comfortability is outside of a hospital setting. And we had some friction and some tension around that. Ultimately, we ended up going to see a mediator. And I'm not sure if Mariah talked about this much, and I'm hoping she did. So that way it's not like, I'm more stuck on this than she was, because
this part of the story, she told this part of the story.
Okay, good.
So, yeah.
Okay, good. I'm like, gosh, because like her and I always talk, I would be surprised if she didn't, because her and I always said we want each other to be very honest about our journey and about how things were going to come out. And I really fretted over this, because I thought, this is her body that's pregnant and that's going to be delivering this baby. And her decisions, she has a right to decisions about her body. And there was definitely a gray area in terms of what that meant about birthing location. And ultimately, I did tell her, for me, I'm all for a natural childbirth with no interventions. But I said, I don't want us to have to sacrifice having medical interventions down the hall should an emergency arise. But birthing at a hospital meant her birthing experience would be completely different. And that was one of the things that she really had expressed to us that she wanted out of this journey. And I just felt like one way or another, we were both going to get cheated because we wanted Tyler and I wanted every opportunity for everyone to be as safe as possible. And for us, that looked like having immediate access to medical interventions. And for Mariah, she really wanted this birthing experience she wanted to feel safe. And feeling safe meant that she wanted to be around providers that trusted her. Mm-hmm. And that does not always happen in a hospital setting. So both of our feelings were just so critical and valid that it turned out in the contract that the way it was written, that Tyler and I had the ability to, I guess you could call it, dictate the birthing location, which I don't know if anyone else would see it this way, but it didn't feel like a win to us. It just felt like felt like we couldn't imagine the birth without having access to medical interventions.
Yeah.
And that if anything happened to the baby, that it would have been devastating for us. And if anything would happen to Mariah, that we wouldn't want to cost her family Mariah. So, I mean, it just felt like it was the right thing to do. And so we said, Mariah, how can we make a hospital birth work for you? And Mariah is such an amazing soul, because she went and researched a provider at Presbyterian Hospital and said, all right, so since this is going to happen this way, she had a right to be very angry, and she was, but she worked through it, and she handled it so beautifully. And she said, I found this provider. I really like this provider. And I said, yes, it's your birth, Mariah. And we want it to be what you need. And so she said, okay. So she found this provider, amazing midwife, just wonderful. Mariah talked this provider into being available for the birth. And the provider said, I'm going to do it. I'm going to be there for you. I'm going to make it happen. It's not the way we do things, but I'm going to make it happen. And it was just so wonderful to have this provider for this provider to understand that Mariah was making a big sacrifice to birth in a hospital. And this was a special circumstance, or an unusual circumstance, a non-traditional circumstance. And this provider really wanted to accommodate all of us. And I'll never forget her kindness, especially her kindness towards Mariah, because she was there for Mariah. And she was there for the baby, but she was really there for Mariah. And that's what I couldn't imagine anything more important.
This ends part 1 of Shay's story. In the next episode, we'll head back to Mariah's story to hear about her birth and postpartum experience. Finally, in the 4th episode, we'll hear the rest of Shay's story and her early motherhood experience. Thanks for joining us for this special series about surrogacy. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Motherhood Metamorphosis. If you've enjoyed this episode, please hit the thumbs up and subscribe to this channel so you never miss an episode. Next, tell your friends. Podcasts are a slow growth type of social media, so promo works best when it's from person to person. If you know another mom who's in the goop right now, send her a text of encouragement and the link to the episode that is speaking to your heart right now. If you have a story about your own matrescence, the physical, emotional, hormonal, and social transition that occurs when someone becomes a mother, please leave a comment below. I want this channel to be a place where women can build community about the challenges and joys of their own motherhood metamorphosis. Thank you so much for listening today. I hope it encouraged you and gave you some good food for thought. If you ever have any questions, comments, or you'd like to reach out to me personally, you can email me at brittanyaming@gmail.com. Hang on just a second. Honey, I'm doing an interview right now, okay? This is my
Hi,
daughter.
sweetie.
Yeah, I'm doing an interview right now, so I need you to go out and play until I'm done, okay?
Mom, when you're done, can we go on a walk?
We'll see if we can go on a little walk when I'm done, okay?
Okay.
Okay, bye-bye. Love
Bye.
you.
Oh, she's sweet.
Thank you.
What's her name?
Her name's Grace.
I love that name, Grace.
Well, and Mariah was my doula for Grace. So that's how we are connected, is that she was my doula when Grace was born.